In this lesson, we'll go over a few options of how to export our finalized projects from DaVinci Resolve. A few lessons back, we discussed round trip between nonlinear editors and DaVinci Resolve. We used the delivery panel to export our timeline back into a nonlinear editor. Let's look at some other options that the delivery panel offers. We switch to intermediate settings. This time, we won't be using presets, which means that we'll be setting the parameters on our own. We locate our timeline at the bottom of the screen. We see that it contains 9 clips. There are 2 basic ways to export clips. We either export the entire timeline as a single video file, or we export each clip separately. Let's assume that we need our grading approved, so we need to send a preview of the entire project. Thus, we need to export all 9 clips as a single preview video. Therefore, I select Single Clip in the settings. Next, we need to set the file format. QuickTime seems to be a good choice, since most players will be able to play it. Let's select the H.246 codec, for example. If the file size is not much of an issue, let's leave the best quality for automatic bitrate. If our client asked for a smaller file due to transmission over the internet, we can limit the bitrate. For preview purposes, the resolution can be lowered, for instance, to 720p. Next, we can set the desired signal level. Some software types work with the range where the black and white points are moved to the legal level. For an H.246 preview, we'll want to map the level to the entire range, so we select Data. If we're using an audio track, we need to enable it, of course. The file name can be manually edited in this field, or we can select one of the automatic options, for example, the timeline name. Next, we select the location where we'd like the file to be stored. In the Options window, we can set additional parameters. For example, if we're working with a raw material, say from a RED camera, at times we set a lower and therefore faster debayering for our work in order to achieve real-time playback. However, we want the full quality when exporting, and we won't mind if the export takes a little longer. In such cases, we activate this option. If we're using cache, we don't need to render everything again, since cache files can be used for export as well. For our project, none of these parameters needs to be enabled. Usually, we wish to export a color-corrected preview. If, however, the client wishes to obtain the original material for comparison, we don't need to switch to the color panel, where we would turn off grading for each clip. We simply enable flat pass, that is, select Always On. If, for some reason, we did want to turn off grading for some selected clips, we can do so in the color panel. With a right click, we locate the active grading version and enable flat pass for this individual clip. We would then select With Clip Settings in the delivery window. Our preview settings are complete, and we could now proceed with project render. However, we are not limited to only one format. In fact, we can export several formats in a single step, adding QuickTime ProRes, for instance. Although the second format will share all the settings we have previously made. So, if we want to export in higher resolution than the one we chose for this preview, we'll need to do so separately. I will therefore delete this second output and keep just the H.246 format. Before adding the job to render queue, it is important to set or check the selection of clips we wish to export. Call up the menu with a right-click. We don't have to export the entire timeline. In fact, we can select the in and out points. If we wish to export everything, we choose Select All. Next, we choose Add Job to Render Queue. The render does not have to be started right away, though. We can add another export into the render queue. Let's say that with the preview, we also wish to export in better quality and in full resolution. I choose, for example, ProRes 4444, resolution HD 1080, data level, and edit the file name. Then I send this export to render as well. Next, I click the render for both files. Let's check if our export was successful. Now, let's look at the other way of exporting files, where each clip will be saved separately. Such a situation may occur when someone asks you to grade a material before editing it in a nonlinear editor. And subsequently, you'll want to export the entire material by individual clips. So under Settings, we select Individual Source Clips. A new option is added to the settings where we can choose whether the clips will be exported in the specified resolution, that is in HD 1080 in our case, or whether they will be exported in the original resolution, as saved by the camera, for example in Ultra HD. For better identification, we can save the files under their original names, so we select Use Source File Name. Then select the folder where the files will be saved. Finally, we select the entire timeline once again. Yet, how to proceed when we need to export only some of our clips? The easiest way is to determine the in and out points on the timeline. I choose the in, then out. In this case, only these 3 clips would be exported. However, at times we're unable to mark clips so easily. Say we additionally corrected the range clips, and now we need to export them again. In such cases, we can use clip filtering. We call up the menu with this button. We see that the clips can be filtered based on several parameters. That is, we're able to export only those clips where we used noise reduction, for example, or clip tracking, or just those we corrected within the last hour. If we wish to filter by content, we can use color coding of clips using flag. Let's return to the color panel. Select the first shot from the wrench, call up the menu with a right click, and flag it, say blue. Let's mark all other wrench shots this way. We don't have to flag them individually, since multiple clips can be selected using Command or Alt in Windows and then color flagged. We can color flag the church clips in red, for instance. The remaining clips can be green, for example. When we return to the delivery panel, we can now filter only the blue clips, for example. The filters can also be combined. Let's add our red clips. So this way, only the green clips will not be exported. The clips on the timeline have been filtered, but we still need to or may want to select those that we want to export. We select the entire timeline, that is, all clips. In spite the fact that all 9 clips are still on the timeline, only the 7 selected clips will be exported. We start the render. The application asks us whether we also wish to render the 2 previous jobs again, since we have not erased these from our render queue. We select that we don't wish to render them again. Now we check the export. There are 7 graded clips in the folder, named the same as the source files. In this lesson, we discussed additional export and file selection options in DaVinci Resolve. Finally, I would like to thank you for viewing this tutorial and wish you lots of success when working with color corrections in DaVinci Resolve.